you guys, we had a little bit of technical difficulty this morning, but we've got it all fixed. So excited that you are here and able to join us. Some of you may not be able to see us inside of YouTube yet, but it will be uploaded so that you guys can see it. So thanks for joining us today. Today is a really exciting day in a way because we get to share how one person overcame a struggle that a lot of us feel when we begin marketing our business as an online tutor. So you're going to get to hear Coach Suzanne's story, who, thank you so much, by the way, Suzanne, for being brave enough to share your story with our community. And then we are going to share what steps did she take to move past that fear. And then what does her business look like today? So you are not going to want to miss 1 second of this because you're going to get to see how did she overcome this and then how was she able to make an impact in her business? Because now, today, she gets 8 to 10 people that are following her and reach out to her a month for her services. And a large part of that is due to what she was able to accomplish. So definitely stay tuned, you guys, and let's listen to more. So thank you so much for joining us today, Suzanne.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this. I think it's an important conversation. I'm glad you're doing it.
Yes, and I'm so glad that you were brave enough to come and be able to share the story, because a lot of people walk through something similar, maybe something extremely similar or something that they can relate to when it comes to this fear of being seen online. I mean, today in schools, we teach our kids, to protect themselves online and don't put any information about yourself out there online. Yet when you start a business, that is a formula for failure if you want to run an online tutoring business. So it's really hard for a lot of people to overcome these kinds of thoughts. And I remember when you came and joined us in our community about 6 years ago, I remember you coming on in and you listened to absolutely everything. You came onto every single call, but I do remember you being a lot quieter and not like driving into like action right away, because there were some fears that you were overcoming that I didn't know anything about at that time. So, can you share with us a little bit about your journey through that fear that you had of being seen? Like, how did it start for you?
Okay. Well, the fear of being seen really goes way back to the 90s when I was stalked for several years. And in that case, it was just something that, I didn't think would, at the time, it seemed like, oh, this is just an ex-boyfriend who's just persistent, because it started when I was 15 in high school. And, at the time, it was always that, well, boys chase girls and, it's just this ongoing thing. And then suddenly the girl turns around but it wasn't boy chases girl. It was a boy, tries to break into her locker to steal her correspondence. It was, showing up everywhere, getting information about me, driving by my house, phone calls. If I didn't cave into something, it was doing things to destroy my reputation. One of which was to take a photograph of me. He was pretty techy for the 90s, and he took one of the photographs he had of me and superimposed it on a nude Playboy model, and then had that plastered all over the school, with one of those, with the very sexually demeaning saying underneath. So it was things like that persisted even after I graduated from high school. And because it was a lot of phone calls and things, I was always really scared of phone calls and of physically being watched or being seen. around the same time, I was looking for anybody whom I could trust to kind of empathize with me, help me, just be a support. And I was very vulnerable when I was 19, and I trusted the wrong person. It was somebody I had known, also somebody I had gone to high school with, and he sexually assaulted me, in front of other people. It was really a horrifying experience and time in my life. And so I had post-traumatic stress disorder. I recovered, but it really took like 2 years, where my life just literally stopped, and I was afraid of everything. But I got better, went to college, went to grad school, but I was trying to make sure that I was like in safe environments.
Mm-hmm.
So the college I chose was a women's college. They had really good security. I wouldn't have to deal with anything like that. And it was an exceptional college, and I got a lot of confidence and leadership skills. But then when I went to grad school, I was like, I want a big city. I want some place where I can hide, and not be seen. And my life was really, you don't want to be found, so you don't want to be seen online. And you certainly, when social media came about, like, that scared me the most, I think, was the thought of somebody finding me. But flash forward years later, I want to do this. I want to become a tutor. And you had that course at the time, online presence, and I was a good student. I showed up, I took notes, I knew exactly what to do, but I couldn't join, even though I belonged to the insiders, I couldn't join the Facebook group. Like, it just, and I was like, I'm missing out so much on a part of this group and connecting with people, connecting with other tutors, and then, my possible ideal client, and all of those things. And it's like being frozen in time until you take one small step forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so that first step forward was really working myself up to the point where I joined Facebook, and I created a Facebook page, and I joined your Facebook group online. And the whole time I was doing that, I was afraid, what if people from my past found me? Because
right.
That's what people do on Facebook. They look other people up, and they, cyber stalk people and all of those things, because that's the fear that a lot of people have. And then for somebody like me, it was an even magnified fear.
Right.
So that was one of the biggest things. Creating a video was another terrifying thing, because my face was going to be out there on video.
Mm-hmm.
And people could recognize me on YouTube. But you want to get people to your website. You don't want to hide your website. And then the same thing with blogging. I always thought if I were to write something or publish something online, I'd have to use a pen name. And of course, you don't seem trustworthy if you have a pen name. You don't seem trustworthy to other people if you don't show who you are, or you don't use a real name on social media. You've got to be brave and do all of those things. But it was something that was truly hard, and trying to overcome that fear was really an ongoing process that took me a long time. And now, of course, I think, oh my gosh, there's nothing to being, on social media. There's nothing to having a Facebook page or a Facebook group, or, blogging is natural. I want people to find my blog posts. I want them to see my name. I want my name everywhere, my face everywhere.
Yes.
So it's been a huge transition.
Yes, and what a powerful journey you've had to walk through. What would you tell that that scared you in the very beginning, that first day that you entered into the Insiders, where you started coming to Zoom calls and you started being such a great student? What would you tell that scared you today that you didn't know?
That you're safer than you think. And also that the risk is worth like all of the rewarding relationships, that you build, getting the students. But then also I love connecting with other people now. I love connecting with tutors and all of those things. And that the risk pays off because you gain so many more good relationships in your life. And if you're scared, you don't.
Yeah. You push that away. And I remember you ended up coming to our very first in-person conference. You traveled all the way to Cape Coral, Florida to be able to hang with us. And it almost felt like when we even met each other, it wasn't like it was any different. It was like, here we are. We're just in person now. Like, hey, because you can't develop.
Now I know how tall people are. That was like the thing. Because the only thing on Zoom is you never know how tall somebody is.
Right? Can you imagine if you got like Tony Robbins on Zoom? That man is like, he is a giant, I tell you. He is a giant in person. But yeah, on Zoom, he would look just like the same size as us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Now, I know that, you've walked through this path and we talked about this fear of being seen, you guys. If you didn't happen to see the YouTube live that I did on Monday, we talked about this is a real fear that people have. There's even a medical diagnosis for it, a medical name for it. It's a type of phobia, right? And some of us have it at different levels, right? So the social anxiety is real. It's not something that's just like made up in somebody's head. And, this fear of, a lot of people fear even just being judged in a negative way, right? So some people are fear that they might not be liked, or they might be rejected, or they might be seen as a failure. And it can lead to then you not sharing your message, which stops you from building a relationship with an audience. And it really affects three different types of people, and you may be all three. As you listen to this, I certainly fall into all three categories. One are the introverts. I'm super introverted. I get my energy from actually having alone time versus being around people like extroverts do. I'm also an empath. So an empath is a person that connects easily to other people's emotions and takes them on as their own. And highly sensitive people, if somebody says something negative, like you are just an emotional wreck. And that was me throughout, the whole beginning journey of starting my online tutoring business. Do you identify with any of those at all? Introvert, empath, or highly sensitive, Suzanne?
All of the above. All of the above. That would be what I would circle.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us, as we get started, we think the only thing we need to do is just get more students. That's it. We don't go into the rest of it, which is the underlying factors of success, which is our own mind and our own belief systems. And we have unconscious thoughts that we're not even aware of that hinder us from being able to get the amount of students that we had. So let's pretend you never got over this fear, Suzanne, and you never started blogging because you held on to this fear. How would that have impacted your business today?
I'd be going back to teaching for a school or something.
Oh,
no. Or I would have wound up tutoring for a company that would not pay me what I'm worth.
Right.
And dreading it.
And I'm glad that that's not your story today. But
yes,
in order to get found online, you have to have a presence online. It is absolutely pivotal that we have this. And, here's what I find, that when you have a fear of being seen, here are some of the thoughts that go through people's heads. Oh, I'm going to be salesy, or I'm going to be like, people aren't going to really see me for my authentic self. Or they worry that I'm not going to look good enough or sound good enough, right? Or they get into the cycle of like self-doubt. Questioning leads into like analysis paralysis. They wonder if they're good enough to even talk about this topic. Like, who am I to talk about this, right? Or they assume they're like, I don't really have as much experience as other people. So, or I don't have that right personality. I mean, in order to be on video, you got to be like, woo, like Joanne all the time. And these are all fears that just, they help you believe why you should continue to not be seen online, and they hold you back from what you are meant to do. So did you have that thought that you would come off as salesy or inauthentic, Suzanne?
I definitely had the thought of the fear of like sounding salesy.
Yeah.
I had the fear of not seeming likable enough, and like seeming very stiff. I related to that a lot because there's been lots of people who haven't liked me, right? So
sure, we all have that
so
too.
so like that was a pretty common one.
Yes. And I remember like you even saying in those early days, like, but Joanne, I'm not as peppy. I'm just kind of like a more calm, down to earth person. And it's like, yes. And that's who you should be. You should try to be peppy Joanne, right? If you're going to be peppy Joanne, then peppy Joanne doesn't even need to exist, right? Like we all connect with different people for different reasons. And somebody may watch you online and really connect with that because they're like, okay, I can't deal with super hyper people. Like, I need somebody who can just explain to me this in a very calm demeanor so that I can get the results that I'm looking for, right? And so I think all of our different personalities are needed. We just have to be authentically ourselves. Like, don't try to be, somebody else throughout this process. So people that are scared, then a lot of times what they do is they're like, well, I'm not going to show up on social media. Right. You did baby steps when it came to the social media. Tell us more about those baby steps you took.
Well, the first baby step was Facebook. Well, it's a baby step to other people, but it's a gigantic step to me at that time. But like signing up for that profile, that was one day. Creating the Facebook page, that was another day. Joining your Facebook group, like requesting to join a group, that was another day. And it was like, let me research how to do these things, like how do you request to join a group? How do you create a little Facebook page? What do you write? What do you do? All of those little detours I could take to kind of get me there, and then the next process was like, okay, what's another social media site that I can put myself on? I'm on Twitter. I've not checked Twitter, but that was a baby step, getting on Twitter. So those were the baby steps. Doing the video.
Yes.
I even broke that up into baby steps. Here's the day that I'm going to write the script. Here's the day that I'm going to practice. Here's, what I'm going to wear. And here's, the day that I'm going to record, which actually wound up being like 3 days, because that perfectionism, that was kind of fueled by that fear of being seen, was, making me take 63 takes. And I remember that you were coaching me and like, I had them labeled like hair in my face,
I remember seeing that. And I was like, whoa, wait.
Good, but, like I sound, I trip over this word, or there was one like, good, but I use singular they or something like that, because back then it wasn't okay to use singular they.
Yeah,
which is a grammar thing. So if you don't know that, people just look it up. I'm not going to go into it.
I just learned the grammar thing that you can't have two spaces anymore after a period. I was like,
Yeah.
what? Since when? I look at my husband, I'm like, did you know you can't have two spaces after a period? He goes, no. I'm like, yes, like that's a thing now. Like they changed the rule on us old people. We're still putting two spaces after our periods.
Yeah.
Whatever. Things change. We just have to stay on top of it. But you then after those takes, like I remember just looking at you and saying, okay, I like when people take a lot of takes. However, Suzanne, you have gone overboard. And you are only allowed to do 5 or 10. Like,
yeah.
At that point, you have your message down. Don't worry about a piece of hair that is out of place. I mean, it's great to keep those things in, like having like a little checklist,
right,
where you're like, okay, these are the things I want to look for. I want to look at my lighting. I want to make sure that's great. Like look at that checklist beforehand so you can have that all in place, but not to use it to totally not put your message out there because it's going
right.
nothing. And it's scary to make that first video anyways.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm. And I remember you ended up getting a comment. I don't know if it was this video or another one. Your mom even gave you a comment, but it wasn't a comment like even like a nice or loving, gentle comment.
No.
Do you remember what it was? I'm
trying to remember because well, she's not on Facebook, but I doubt she'll watch the YouTube video. But I think it was something about like my face not being even,
okay.
A little bit lopsided, or how I smiled or something.
Yeah.
And it might have been one where I'm too pale.
Yes, that's the one. That's the one.
That's the one. Yeah, because I wound up putting like 12 layers of blush on. And you still can't tell. Like I still look incredibly pale.
I remember you mentioning that, and and these are sometimes the things that scare people from taking that, but we laugh at that now, right? Like, pale, like that's what you noticed out of everything I said. Like, okay, you got to let people be people. Are they going to think things? Are they going to say things? Yes, we have no control over what other people are going to say or do. But when people start saying those kinds of things, that's our big moment to shine, because we know that we're getting found. And you want to be found in as many places as you possibly can so that you can exactly do that, right? Get found. If we don't put ourselves online, we cannot get found. And that's going to hinder you from being able to do what it is that you want to be able to do with your online tutoring business. So I want you to think about right now, before we move into like what was your strategy, what was the main strategy you ended up using. If you could give somebody who's in a similar position as you advice today, what advice would you give them?
I would give them the advice of, well, first try to change your self-talk and make it more positive. Mm-hmm. So for me, like one of the big things, and this is specifically to relating, if you've ever been a victim of something, to kind of change my talk about myself to, I'm a survivor. And when you start framing things like this, I'm a survivor and I'm going to be, great, or I have a great business, or any of like those really positive affirmations that you can do, depending on your level of comfort, that helps. And then other things that uplift you. So like one of the things that really uplifts me is finding other people's stories of things they've overcome, and kind of find like those, whether it's a book or somebody, somebody who wrote a book, or somebody who's, in your field, or athletes. I think athletes are great for me, especially with the Olympics coming up.
Oh my God, love the Olympics.
Find those uplifting stories, because they're everywhere. And, surround yourself with those things, those positive things. And then for me, anything that really makes you kind of feel strong. So like for me, music makes me feel strong. Like I could just listen to certain songs like Queen's We Will Rock You. Like, so before I was signing up for social media, I'm listening to something that gets me really pumped. So do things like that. Surround yourself with positivity.
You know what inspires me even more? Paralympic. The Paralympics.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. I mean, you want to hear some incredible stories. There's a guy that has no arms and ended up coming in first place in like a 500-meter swim. And you're like, wait, how, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we think about, I mean, those are our big stories, but at the same time, a lot of times we limit ourselves and our capabilities, and a lot of us have all of our body parts functioning and working, but there's just something that has a wire that is switched into a different direction inside of our mind. And when we can switch that that little wire inside of our mind and use those affirmations, it can be so positive. In fact, I came up with some specifically for some I am statements. If you are going through this fear of being seen, and it is this: I am willing to be seen online. The more I show up online, the more confident I become. Most people are good and will not use my information to harm me. More people are finding me because I'm showing up and being authentic. I say this all the time. The biggest reason a lot of us aren't getting students, it's not because you're not good at what you do. It's because nobody knows that you exist. And so the more that you can let people know that you exist and all these different things, it will help you be so much more successful with being able to get students. And now because of that, you're able to get about 8 to 10 students reaching on out to you, seeking your services. And your biggest way of being able to get students has always been your blogging strategy.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And Suzanne didn't even know I was going to do this today, but later on, I'm going to share a link that is going to be really, really powerful for you guys. And you are not going to want to miss it. So tell us a little bit about how you started blogging and your first experience with somebody finding you because of your blog.
Okay. Well, I started blogging really early on when I had first created my website. I might have waited a month, but I had studied blogging. I had taken blogging courses. I had studied it. So I did feel like I understood the craft and I understood who I was writing for because, I understood my students and their struggles. So I started off writing things like that, just directly to people on things that I knew that they dealt with in class or things like that. And I felt very confident doing it in the beginning because it was kind of content-based. It wasn't like I had to tell my whole story or anything like that in a blog. And so doing that, and initially, they were all topics that could kind of, we call them evergreen topics. And by evergreen, we mean those things that people will always be looking for and looking up and needing. And I felt as I was doing it, like really good. It was like, oh, I'm becoming more of an expert. And people are finding me because I am putting it on Pinterest and on social media. But the first person who found me because of my blog, and I didn't even know this until like 2 years later, was a high school student in my local area. She actually lived like 2 towns away from me. And she even attended my church, but she didn't find me any of those ways. She found me by reading my blog.
Wow.
And that was how she came to know me. We found out later we met at church. She's like, wait, are you Suzanne Davis? So that was my first student, but I didn't know I got her from the blog. So trying to remember. pretty early on, I started getting people from my blog because I was on Pinterest, and people who are on Pinterest are always looking for help with a particular subject.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you use Pinterest as a real, a great strategy in the beginning to be able to pin, get found, share other people's content, join groups, join other things that were going to help your content get found, and you know, that's a whole entire, you know, strategy in and of itself, which is fantastic. Those resources and tools are available to us to be able to do. You really like pumped up your Pinterest page like nobody's business, and you even motivated me to pump up my Pinterest page. I remember at the time,
Yeah.
which was fantastic. And you're not going to find me on Pinterest too much today, you guys. So don't look there for me. You're better off checking out my YouTube channel, where I am constantly on it, or listening to some other podcasts, those kinds of things, to be able to find me today, because we all find our different path that's going to lead us to the most success. And you started, actually, I remember you started analyzing your posts and seeing where most of your traffic was coming from. And you guys, this is the best part. She ended up finding out that, you'll have to tell us how you found this out, but she found out that there were other professors that were making her blog posts part of required reading for their courses, which, come on now, this is her ideal client. She's an academic writing tutor, right? So she was getting right in front of her ideal student just because of this. She never saw that happening. As soon as it happened, she's like, Joanne, when did I become an expert? Like what, like, she's so humble. I loved it. It was amazing. But how did you find out that professors were sharing your content?
Well, I had teachers like reach out to me and email me, and I did have, you know, at one point when the pandemic first started, a professor actually did reach out to me, and she's like, you know, it was this one on gratitude writing prompts. And she said she took that post, you know, she changed some of the prompts, and she told me how her students loved it. So I knew there were professors and professionals out there using my stuff. But I found out I was required reading because a student in one of those classes messaged me like, you know, you're required reading, and it's, you know, it's this particular blog post, and, you know, can you help me?
Oops, we just lost
Required reading.
There we go.
Okay.
I just had a weird jing go on. I don't know what that was. Wow. So, and then did she become a client of yours?
No, that student didn't, but like other students were coming, you know, and I found, once I signed up for Uber Suggest. So for those of you who don't know what Uber Suggest is, it's a website that you can type in different keywords, and it shows you the keywords ideas and the websites that can be found for them.
Mm-hmm.
But it analyzed my, you know, I signed up for an account, and it analyzed my website and the backlinks, and all of a sudden I found out like there's all of these colleges and schools linking to my stuff.
What?
And I'm like, I don't even know where these people came from, but it was super, super powerful, especially during the pandemic, because at one point it used to be Pinterest. That was my biggest source. But that became one of my biggest sources, that and Google, because I had been blogging so much.
Uh-huh. Wow. And so now all of a sudden there are so many links that are being backlinked to you, which is the other piece of the process. You really didn't have to work too hard at that backlinking process. That began to happen naturally for you, which then Google started recognizing you then as a expert in the field as well. And, you know, when that happens, you begin showing up higher inside of the results. You're also able to take a look at what is most useful and meaningful to people, like by how many people have been on this particular page of my website, and then you're able to create other kinds of funnels to go along with that, or get them onto your email list by creating a freebie that goes along with that and grow your email list. Amazing things can happen because of that process. And again, it increases the amount of people that know you exist. It allows you to be seen as an expert. And people are going to turn to you in those cases versus going to just some kind of a website where they could find a whole bunch of other writing tutors. Because of that process, do you feel that you get a lot of people questioning how much you charge?
No, like I get consultations now, and I'm thinking, I used to think like I had to really, kind of convince them. I never have to convince anybody. They already know they want to hire me, when they sign up for that consultation, which is, it's like, oh, that's pretty handy.
Isn't that? It is.
That's really handy.
Yes.
That's nice.
I love it.
No, I don't get a lot of questions or any questions now about price.
So those of you who are sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, people are asking me about price all the time. It's driving me crazy. Like it's their first question. Here's our advice for you. Create an online presence. Create some other outlets for yourself to be seen, known, and witnessed as an expert, right? And that is going to help you. You create a lot of content around value for your ideal client. How long would you say that it took you in the beginning to write a blog post compared to now?
Okay. In the beginning, it would take me like 4 hours, but I wasn't sure what I was doing. And, I didn't, even though I had taken a blogging course, I hadn't thought of like the systems that I could put in place to make all of that easier and quicker. And now I have it down. So now it's like unless it's like a really long, like epic blog post, it takes me about 2 hours from starting to all the way up to like editing and getting into that editing. But I'm a crazy editor, so it always takes me a little longer than it would for most people. I'm like a psycho crazy editor.
Which you have to be. I mean, you're writing tutor. You can't get away from it. If you got errors inside of there, that's going to blow your credibility and expertise, right? Out of the water, right? So that's got to be a piece of it for you. I would say that even if you're not, like, even if, like, let's say you're a math tutor or something, if you don't feel confident in your editing, hire somebody to do it. There's cheap tools online that you can hire somebody to check your work for you, or create an accountability partner where like you're checking each other's work so that they can catch some of those mistakes. That'll be absolutely huge and critical for you so that you can be seen as an expert, especially like if you start publishing your stuff on LinkedIn, those kinds of places, they have high expectations. So definitely, just because if you feel like your grammar isn't exactly the way it needs to be, don't let that hold you back from writing. But just bring somebody onto your team that could be your proofreader and editor, right?
Yeah. And if you're starting out and you don't have a team, don't let that stop you. You can easily find somebody else that will look at your work and do like a blog swap. I know in the blogging mastermind group that I coach in the insiders group, I've set things up so that people, if they want to find an editorial partner, they can, and the two of them just, work it out, and they just swap blog post drafts and read them over. And there's really good tools out there. There's tools like Grammarly that are pretty good with helping you with editing, that I find are a little bit better than, well, Grammarly's a lot better than a regular grammar and spell checker.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I use it even for like my posts and stuff that I do. Now I just have to make sure that I look at it and follow the. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So you may see some errors on my part. But I think we always want to put our best foot forward, no matter what it is that we are doing as we're putting ourselves out there online. Now, what some people don't know is that you also started doing some like live streaming as well as part of your process. And that was getting you clients as well. And I mean, at this point now, you're putting your face on out there. You know, you had the blog post you can kind of hide behind a little bit more, but you actually put yourself all the way out there and you started doing some live streaming. Tell us about that.
It actually, it was a little scary. It was kind of a lot to be doing. But the thing with starting out with live streaming is you have to beg somebody to show up. Mm-hmm. Like you are not being, you are not in front of millions at that point, unless you've got like thousands of friends.
Yes.
So, you can just, and I always kept things very content-based because I feel comfortable with content. I wasn't the kind of live streamer that, would say, hey, let's just do some questions and answers, because no, I always had to have a concept or something like that. But it went fine. And I did get people who would request my services just because they had seen a live stream. Mm-hmm. And they had liked the information that I provided. I wasn't in any way, shape, or form, I would say, like the most confident person doing it or going out there. And I don't utilize live streaming like I used to. But I'm still more of a shy person. But it did work. I got clients quickly from it.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And you also created YouTube videos as well that you placed on your channel.
Oh, yeah.
But they still get found, don't they?
They still get found. Somehow or other, I wound up with 600 subscribers.
Yay!
But that's been years, in the process. But some of those videos, they make me shudder.
Well, and I think that's the thing is I love the fact that you didn't allow those past fears that you had get to the point where it stopped you from at least trying some of those other strategies, because I think it was through trying some of those other strategies where you really discovered your sweet spot for your audience. And it's through your writing that you connect the most with people. And so if you didn't try those other strategies, you may not have convinced yourself that that was going to be the number one strategy for you. And you did it anyways. So yay, congratulations. Now, I know some of you guys are wondering, well, if inside of our community, she's our blogging queen. Like she is the go-to girl when it comes to this. And you've even created a highly successful tutors blogging toolkit that helps tutors who want to get started with blogging have some similar results like you had. Now, know that this is not like an overnight success. It does take time. It can take up to 3 months before Google starts recognizing your posts, and they begin showing up for different words. But can you tell us a little bit about the contents of that toolkit?
Sure. Yes. So what I tried to do is think of like every aspect of blogging and how to simplify it. So the very first piece of it is, I can't remember the title, but it's a blogging strategy and success planner. And so that helps you think of your business goals and the blogging goals that you should set, and that for success, so because you want your blogging not to just be random, but you want it to support actually the business goals that you're striving to do. Then I have my 2022 content planner in there, which goes through the different ways in which you can create topics, and you create different themes for the different months, and then you can write down like exactly what your content is going to be. The great thing about this content planner is it shouldn't take you longer than, I would say, an hour or 90 minutes to plan the entire year. Like that's like, if you follow that, and I know it sounds like a really big claim, but it's not.
It's not. It
Trust
really
me.
is. We've been
If
doing this, you
if
guys, for years. Yes.
yeah, it's just not. So there's that. There's the blogging calendar, the 1 year blogging calendar that I created. So it's a digital calendar, and it's got all of the blogging tasks and room for how you can set that up. There's the blogging tasks checklist. There are infographic templates. There's my ultimate list of free or low cost blogging tools in there. I know I'm missing
You have
something.
just decked it out with so many resources to get anybody who wants to start blogging and really utilizing this on the right track with every single one of these tools. I know a lot of people, the very first thing they say, I don't know what to write about. So your package actually solves that problem for them, because if they can figure out 90 minutes and 2 hours, they can figure out exactly all the topics that they are going to write about for the next year. They never have to sit down again and wonder, what am I going to write about today? Because it's already figured out. And now you have that opportunity. The only thing holding you back is just sitting down and writing. And you have a strategy for that you talk through a lot of people with. And that is just like, sit down and write for, is it 10 minutes a day?
10 to 15 minutes a day. Yeah. Take your blog post topic, and remember, you're already going to have them for the year. Just kind of use it as sort of a writing prompt, and then just, free write or write for 10 minutes or 15 minutes about that. And you would be surprised how much people can write in 10 minutes. I am surprised by how much people can write in 10 minutes. But it's always over like 120. I have lots of people, they spend 15 minutes and they're writing like 200 words. It goes a lot faster because you're letting go of that piece that says, let me make it perfect. Because a rough draft shouldn't be perfect. We call it the ugly first draft.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's important. Like, a lot of us, we write and we're done.
Yeah.
And we don't go through the process. Even if we know the process and what it is, we write and we're done. We just want to be done. And that's kind of the way society is today with everything, right? I did it once. I just want to be done. I don't want to have to go through it and analyze it and go through this step or that. But you're really hurting yourself when you skip that step, because that's where our credibility and even our clarity come from. We all might know what it is that we're saying, but your checklist helps us to really look for some of those things that might be those top mistakes that we need to look for. And I think that's a really cool tool to have in there, to know that these are the things that you need to look for, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even know what to look for. You may know what your common mistakes are. You can start creating your own checklist, right? Like, okay, for me, I always skip the darn question mark, and I want to put a period. So I can go through and I can look, okay, do I have any questions where I have any periods and I need to add that question mark?
Yep. The big one for me is misusing words that are all the same, like your and you are, that's your, like all of those things. And those, I think, are a really big mistake for a lot of us.
Yeah.
The
I
three
just blame
different theirs.
I just blame autocorrect. You fixed it wrong, autocorrect. Couldn't have been me typing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, all those things, they stop us from being able to push forward something that we can be proud of. And in the beginning, would you say that when you push publish, millions of people with your blogs are gonna find it immediately?
Yeah, right. Like, I was begging people to read my blog. I remember begging my brother to read a blog post, and no, he was like, I can't even get my brother to read me. He's my little brother. He's supposed to do these things.
I know, right? So like
that's part of the sibling relationship.
Right?
I would read his if he did blogging. But yeah, no one would read them except in the Insider Secrets group. Or no, it was in the Ultimate Support group. We had at one time a thread where people would put their blog post links, and they would share and comment on the person's blog before. And so I did get a few readers that way.
Yeah, and it's great to get that kind of support. So at least you get that kind of like, right. Okay, I'm not writing for nobody. Somebody's reading it.
But they're not your ideal client.
No. Although sometimes they can be. You never know.
Sometimes they can be. But
you never know. And I think that's the scary thing in the beginning is we think like when we push publish, oh my God, the world is going to find this. And we think automatically the 7.5 billion people, I don't know if that's how many there are anymore due to COVID, but the 7.5 billion people in the world, they're going to read this, find this, and I'm going to be exposed. And that just is not what's going to happen. You're going to have very few people in the beginning, which is actually great. You don't want a lot of people finding some of your early stuff right off the gate in the beginning because you're still learning the craft. And then as you build the craft, you begin to build your audience. And you can always go back, and I still do this with Suzanne. Suzanne and I do coaching together, and I always have her go back to some, like, what blog post can you unearth that you could fit, update it or do something to fit what we're going through today. And like, so you could even repurpose blog posts that you've done in the past that maybe nobody even found or read, because nobody finds blog posts. You know how they used to like organize, I don't know if they still do this, organize them by like the date that you wrote them. It would be like January blog post, February blog. Nobody searches by date of when a blog post.
No, they don't.
They search by the title or the idea or the keyword.
Yeah.
They don't search by, I wonder what Suzanne wrote on January 16th of 2016.
Well, I didn't write anything.
So definitely check it out, you guys. Check out that Bloggers Toolkit if you're thinking that blogging might be a good fit for you. And I do think in the beginning, blogging can be a great fit for those that are scared to be seen in the beginning, because you don't have to put your face out there as much. It's great to put your face out there maybe on an image that you're sharing, but you don't have to really put yourself out there in as big of a way as it seems sometimes as video or live streaming,
right, exactly.
Baby steps, right? So, if you've got that fear of being seen, start there and see how it goes. You may find that, writing just isn't your thing, and that's okay, because all of this leads to clarity. What is your thing and how do people connect with you most? I think you're going to be surprised when you find out what those answers are, but you don't know until you start doing them. So thank you so much, Suzanne, for sharing your story with us and how it has resulted in, such a successful online tutoring business where people constantly are finding you, not asking how much you charge, and moving forward with you. I think it's everybody's dream to be in that situation, and you're living that dream. How does that feel?
It's a little surreal.
Yes.
A little surreal.
Yeah. That's the exact word that came to my head, by the way. I was like, surreal. I remember I was in the same position when I started listening to people about video and doing live streaming and all these kinds of things back in 2010. And they were like, you can be seen as an expert, and whatever you want to be seen as an expert, just continue to read, divulge, learn, share, all that great stuff, and people will see you as an expert. And I was like, really? Like, that's all I got to do? I can do that. And I did, and you did, and today it's just amazing. We've got that business, and I hope that you guys want to join us on this journey. So keep joining us for amazing stories like this on Thursdays, 11:30 a.m. Central. If you haven't joined us inside of our Clubhouse, come inside of Clubhouse on Tuesdays. We're there at 10:30 a.m. Central. If you like videos like this, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and come join us on a regular basis. Thanks for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.